Before I start my presentation, it would be in the fitness of the thing that I express my gratitude to MET School of Languages, especially its HOD ma'am, Professor Kumkum Ray, who herself is a known academician. I also extend my thanks to Dr. A.B. Prasad, who is the moderator, because he is going to moderate things in a proper manner. It would be in the fitness of the things to seize this occasion to also extend my thanks to Professor Satyar Tripathi, who happens to be my Guru Bhai, if he has also joined. I hope he would have joined since he's working there. Last but not least, I would extend my special thanks to Dr. Jaya Srivastava, who have shown her faith on me. So once again, namaskar, and let's begin. Should I begin my presentation?
Welcome, Dr. Bajpayee. It's indeed very kind of you to have spared your time. We are all waiting for a very interesting webinar on novel as an art form.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, please begin. Thank you.
Okay. Novel as an art form. Novel, as the word itself suggests, is a new and original, fresh, different art form. You see, among all the literary genres, novel is new. That's why its nomenclature was given novel. It's derived from Latin novellus and Italian novella, and in French it is a nouvelle. So it's an adjective which was added to the new literary art form. It's a novel approach to writing, and nowadays, since the time is of that novel coronavirus, because there were many coronaviruses and this was new one, so again the novel term has been used. But it would be in the fitness of the thing to discuss novel as an art form without wasting much of my time. It is called novel because it is latest, and this art form was developed in 18th and 19th centuries. But it matured in the 20th century. Like novel coronavirus, you see, this genre is also a hybrid kind of form. We do not have any medicine for this COVID-19, so doctors are using hybrid medicines. They are using AIDS and malaria medicines. Same is the case with this art form, novel. You see, it is a loose art form. It encompasses many different subgenres like romance, drama, epic, etc. Often in the 20th century it started containing letters, dialogues, diary form, and top of that, even the brain mapping has also included in novel writing, and travel narratives are also used in novel writing. So that's why it is called novel as an art form, or it is the name novel has been given to this literary genre. You see, the precursors of novel, it started in medieval European prose romances. If we trace its genesis, we have to go back to the medieval period, and John Lilly's Euphues, Thomas Nash's The Unfortunate Traveller, and John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress. They foretold the arrival of the present form of novel, which we are using as a novel. So there are four pillars or four wheels of ancient novel writing, and these four pillars are: first, Samuel Richardson, who started writing in 1600 or rather early 17th century. Pamela, which is an epistolary novel, and Clarissa. Clarissa is a novel on which later on many writers have wrote parallel novels, and Color Purple is one of them. And the Color Purple is a feminist writing which has started of late. And then second pillar of novelist is Henry Fielding. His Tom Jones is prescribed in almost every school syllabi. So it is a picaresque novel. Third one is Tobias George Smollett, whose The Adventures of Roderick Random, which is based on poverty, druggery, and naval life experiences, is another pillar of ancient romances or novel. And the fourth pillar or the fourth wheel of novelist is Lawrence Sterne. His novel Life and Opinion of Tristram Shandy, which is like Tenali Ram's Kisse, is also very popular. So although novel matured in 20th century, but its genesis is in the ancient period. So novel as a latest art form is defined as an art form of craft or skill or contriving through different written words. There is a Greek proverb or aphorism which I would like to quote here: Ars longa, vita brevis. Art is long and life is short. As novel depicts the life of the people, it reminds art as long and life as short. A piece of art lives longer than the human experience. Life of creator is short, but the creation is long. And in this context, I would like to refer Oscar Wilde's novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, which was earlier prescribed in Lucknow University course, but now I don't know for what reason this has been deleted. So this particular novel, it is an autobiographical novel. Some people say this is an autobiographical novel, and the character of Basil is actually Oscar Wilde. So you see, in this novel, the art provides aesthetic. The novel provides aesthetic as well as intellectual pleasure, and the ethos is also there. Morality is also there. So many things are combined in this particular novel, but the basic study of this particular novel can be of novel as an art form. The form of novel, the genre of novel, how it developed in 20th century can be studied only through this novel. Art is judged for its beauty and meaningfulness and the convergence of popular culture through art, and that is displayed and that is portrayed in this particular novel. So let's begin to decode novel as an art form, and I'll be presenting some of my slides for that. Novel is a fictionalized form of a story which started earlier, but it matured during late 19th and early 20th century. Marion Crawford said novel is a pocket theater. As it is said, Aristotle said that poetry is a musical thought. In the same fashion, Marion has said that novel is a pocket theater. You can carry it wherever you go. That is the reason behind its popularity, that it is easy to carry, it is easy to read. You can have your reading of novel in your pleasure time, to like studies are for delight, ornament, and ability. So novel serves all these purposes, that it gives you pleasure, it entertains you, and also it instructs you. Clara Reed has said that a picture of real life and manners and of time in which it is written, because it is a recording. It not only talks about the people and the manners of that particular time, it is a historical record also. So that's why a novel has become so popular in 20th century. If we go by the cognitive psychologist Jerome Berners' suggestion, he said that anything or any lesson which is given to a student or to a person, if it is said in plain words, in essay form, or in any other form, is not as permanent, or its retention is shorter. But if that is wrapped in a story, its retention is 20 times more. That's why stories are very well told and enveloped in a novel form. And you see how stories affect our brain. The psychologist and the scientists have done a lot of research on that, and they have found that the left temporal cortex is a region which governs language and that retains memory. So if the same thing is, because novel gives us time to explain, elaborate, enhance and interpret, so it is retained many a times. It when you read a poem, it's not that easy to contain the central idea, but when that same thing is wrapped in a story, it is very easy to get that idea. So before I go further, I would like to tell that I have basically focused on E.M. Forster's aspects of novel. So the very first thing that comes in this story, plot construction, characters, dialogue, setting, point of view, pattern and rhythm, fantasy and prophecy. So a story comes first. Um, Story has many different connotations. Even in journalistic language, we say that the reporters is going to cover the story. So, but that story and the story we use in literature, especially in novel, is different. These are two different ends. The journalistic story is wrapped in facts, in truth, wherever literary story is an art form. It is a tale which is told well. And this particular, a tale told well means you have a beginning, you have a middle, you have an end. And beginning, middle and end, to contain that you have to keep it in your memory. The simple story which we used to tell to our grandchildren when we are bored, we say, they come to us and they say, please relate a story. We say, ek raja tha, ek rani thi, and both have died. That's the end of the story. Dono mar gaye, khatam kahani. But no, they will not. That doesn't satiate the desire to listen to stories. Rather, that makes them more curious. And then you have to explain that there was a king and there was a queen. Both were in love, and when the king died, out of grief, queen died. So you have to put emotion. It's the emotion of grief, it's the emotion of love which makes a story. So a story in a novel is that element which is the basic element. Nowadays, in 20th century, in 21st century, and in modern period and in postmodern period, deconstruction and structuralism, all that has somehow killed the story. The critics have started saying that this is the end of the story, but no, a story cannot die its natural death. A story has taken a different shape. Yeah. So I have I will not bore you by just concentrating on my PowerPoints, but for the fitness of the things, I would like to tell you, especially our students, that there are 7 types of stories. First, the overcoming of monster, Beowulf or War of the Worlds kind of stories. And the second type of stories are rags to riches, Cinderella kind of stories, or Jane Eyre kind of stories in which a pretty girl finds a beautiful blooms, Mills and Broom kind of stories. And the third one is quest, the Iliad, the Odyssey, Ulysses, this kind of, or Star Wars, etc., this kind of stories. And the fourth is voyage and return, Alice in the Wonderland, Toy Stories, Rebirth, Sleeping Beauty, the Christmas Carol, etc., redemption. And the comedy, Midsummer Night's Dream, 4 weddings and a funeral, and tragedy kind of things, The Godfather, etc. I have put Hamlet also because Hamid and all that, these are very popularly known plays, and as far as the story content is concerned, we can cite that. So there are basically or broadly 7 types of stories which are woven, which have its warp and weft in novel writing. I have, if madam you allow me, there are 3-4 slides which I have deliberately included in that for a story and tell the difference of stories. Dr. Kumkum ma'am, Professor Kumkum ma'am, are you listening me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, please, sure. Do share.
No, but
Thank you.
if we are running, we are having paucity of time, so I can skip it and go to the plot. These are 3-4
No.
slides. You wish me to?
Actually, we have a lot of time yet.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have worked hard for that also, so I would like to relate that. You see, when it comes
Yes,
to
sure.
especially students are concerned, a story becomes very difficult to understand this story or that story. So that's why I started with journalistic stories and literary stories. Here I have cited the examples of anecdote, allegory, mythology, farce, novella, etc., and try to find out the difference. So the anecdote is that short story in which we relate the story of a real person. Like suppose we are talking about some scientist, or like we are talking about the corona. So we say we had a Spanish flu also. So these types of stories are known as anecdotes. Then allegory. An allegory is a story in which a main character is the symbol, he or she is the motive behind that, and often these are represented by the symbolism of characters like truth, evil, greed, jealousy, death, etc. And all the students of English literature would have read Dr. Faustus. In Dr. Faustus, we see that these characters take a symbolic form, and especially in Morality and Miracle plays also these. So this sort of story is known as an allegory. Then fable. A fable is a story that teaches moral lesson. Almost all these stories, fable and parable, all teaches us moral lessons. But in fable, the writer or the storyteller takes the help of the animals, like the hare, the rabbit and the tortoise. All these stories, or Aesop's fable, these stories are known as fable. Then parable. A parable is a short story that teaches a lesson, especially that told by Jesus, if we take in the context of the Jewish mythology and European mythology. But if we talk of Indian mythology or Oriental mythology, then these parables are also from Vedas, and these are also from Puranas. Then novella. You see, in Italian, novel is also termed as novella, but when we talk of English literature, novella has a different connotation. A novella is a short novel. A novel is in no way less than 50,000 words, but a novella is 7,500, more than 7,500 words, and less than 40,000 words. So, but that is not the only difference between novel and novella. Even the treatment is different. Like Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness, and Saul Bellows' The Seize the Day. You see, these are novellas in which the main character or the protagonist have given some choices, and often they end in a day. So that's the difference between the novella and the novel. Not only the length, but the content and the treatment is also different. Then comes farce. Farce is like we say, don't make a farce of everything. Please begin in time. Please do this, that. So farce is a kind of funny drama which is full of ridiculous things, and the purpose of that is to mend, to show the truth. Then legends. Legends are old stories that often we relate, like they may be true, they may not be true. That I have mentioned that the legend of the god Hanuman, since today is Tuesday and Lucknowites used to celebrate Bada Mangal in great fan and fair. So we believe that Hanuman is the son of Pavan or wind. but this is only our faith in that. Or in Christianity we believe that Adam and Eve were expelled from heaven. So all these sorts of stories are legend, but legend we use as adjective also, that he is a legend in his own form, or Amitabh Bachchan is a legend in Indian cinema. So in both connotations we use. So legend is that sort of a story which we use to denote the ancient known figures of history. Then mythology, very old stories and the beliefs are contained in mythology. Whenever we begin our the study of ancient literature, be it Vedas, be it Puranas, be it Smritis, or even I had done my research in Jewish literature. So when I started studying Saul Bellow, or when I started studying Ernest Hemingway, we have to understand their belief system, their faith. So I started with Jewish mythology, studying Jewish mythology, what they think of, what are the names of their gods and goddesses, how they trust, how they show up, or there are certain films also, Troy and etc., or Odysseus, Ulysses. You see, the modern Ulysses James Joyce has written also has its basis in the ancient mythology. So that's the difference between the story we weave in novels and if it is. So in 20th century, you see many novels, many parallel novels are written which are based on mythology, history. Then folklore. Folklore consists of legends and myths as stories, like a story about where their families came, or the grandmother used. You see, we are living in Lucknow since 500 years, or we came from West Bengal, etc., etc., and then we narrate such stories to our children or grandchildren, which has been talked in length in Charles Dickens' essay Dream Children. But when it comes to Charles Dickens' essay, I would like to talk about that Charles Dickens, who used to live in Rochester, he has used a lot of mythology, he has used a lot of folklore which were popular in Rochester. Rochester stands between Strood River and Canterbury. So the mythologies or the stories which were popular over there, he has used in his novels. So that's why I have chosen that I must distinguish between these sort of stories. You see, I have earlier said that nowadays in 20th and 24th century, there is a debate whether story is important or character, whether plot is important or character. So what is a plot? Plot is that when we weave that story in a structured form. We have an exposition. If I cite the example of A Passage to India by E.M. Forster, he begins his novel in a negative tone. Except these. The very first word is except these everybody. That except these everybody in the Chandrapur is known. So you see how the author is going to expose, how the author is going to spill the character of its protagonist or its major and minor characters. So exposition is very important. It is a kind of introduction to the setting, to the environment, to the characters. Then the development comes. A story, it's not necessarily that the writer or the author or the novelist starts from the beginning. He may start from the middle. So then he uses different other techniques and he comes back. So the very first thing, the exposition is very important, or the introduction is very important. How he or she or the novelists are going to introduce their characters or introduce their settings. Sometimes in historical novels or in gothic novels, or if we talk of Salman Rushdie, or if we talk of V.S. Naipaul, they hardly introduce their characters first. But if you go back to 18th century novelists, they start their novels by introducing their characters first. So then the development comes, and then the development reaches to its height, climax, the entanglement starts, and then the falling action, and the main resolution or denouement, the denouement. So I have tried to show this through this graphic picture also. Exposition is flat. The introduction, the author introduces either the setting, either the environment, either the atmosphere of the novel, where the place where it is going to take place, or the character. It may be plot, it may be character, and then the rising action. Then the action goes on, characters meet. If we talk of Jane Austen's novels, hero and heroines meet, then the climax comes, they are in love, Pride and Prejudice, they are in love, then there are a lot of tensions and conflicts arises, then gradually the falling of the action and the resolution, or the denouement, or the this conflict resolution happens. So these sorts of things are there. Before I go to, yeah, but I would prefer first going to the character, then I will talk about the conflict between the character and the plot. You see, characters are very important. Story is also very important, plot is also very important, but characters are very important because they guide us through the stories, they carry us to the stories. The writer holds the finger of the character, and then he takes us to different locations, different scenes, different postures, scenery, etc., and introduces the setting. So characters play a very important role. Before coming to this, I'll show the next slide. This is major characters and minor characters. Everybody either loves or forced to love Harry Potter movies. So the major character is Harry Potter, and the minor characters are Ron and Hermione. So back to the character. In literary novels, especially in English literature, there are four types of characters. Some say that there are only two types of characters, flat and round, but many critics have included dynamic and static characters along with flat and round characters. So dynamic, mostly 99% dynamic characters are protagonists. They are the lead characters, they are the main characters, and their growth is shown in the novels, be it Picaresque novel, be it Bildungsroman novel, whatever sort of novel it is, but the main character or the protagonist is the dynamic character. But the minor characters, often, in most of the time, their development is not shown. They go as they come. Means the traits of their personality are not shown, not developed, because of paucity of time, or maybe the novelist wants that they stay in the background and they help in the growth of the main character. I would seize this opportunity to talk about one thing more. In current era, in today's, many novelists are writing novels on minor characters, like Color Purple has been written on Clarissa, or other, like if we cite the examples from Ramayana or from Mahabharata, many this boy from Banaras, he has written many novels on Sita, and not only Sita, Ahilya, etc. So this is like they are taking minor characters into lead characters. This is known as parallel writing. So, but this is happening in today's era, in contemporary period. Or Nirala has written about Ram ki Shakti Puja, and he has talked about Lakshman and all that. So in English literature also, from Hamlet to minor characters have been picked up, and novels are written on that. But if we go back to the traditional writing, there were two types of characters, flat and round. Flat characters were static characters, and round characters were dynamic characters. Um, I would like to talk about one thing more also, that character word, especially to the newcomers and especially to the students, is often confusing. The one connotation of character is the dramatic persona we were talking about, and another connotation of character is, which we use in our day to day parlance, it is the bent or tendency or habit of a person, whether he is a nice person, his character is good, or he is a bad character. So that is a different connotation. When we talk of characters in novel, we talk of dramatic personae. And while talking about dramatic personae, Aristotle has talked of two things. He has talked of ethos and diaonia. And in ethos, he has talked about that characters have their own moral upbringing. If we talk of Tom Jones, or if we talk of Adventures of Augie March, Augie has his own. He was a timid boy. He was a coy boy, and how he was ridiculed, and later on how he has grew up as a smart young man. So the morality or the ethos talks about that, and the Dionia talks about the intellectual makeup, the intellectual side of the character. The moral side has been dealt in ethos, and the intellectual side has been dealt in Dionia. And Aristotle has talked about all this in detail. When we talk of character, or when we talk of plot, in 20th century and in 21st century, there is a great debate. What is more important, the character is more important, or the plot is more important? When we'll be talking about a stream of consciousness technique or all that in later part of our lecture, we will discuss that. Plot has become subdued and characters have become very important. If time would permit, we will talk about that also. Then the another feature of novel is dialogue. You see, dialogue is like adding sauce, adding masala to the storyline. And not only that, also it's the seasoning on your dish. So it dialogues perform 3-4 types of functions. It provides information, like the minor characters come and they say, you see, Mr. So and so is coming, or Tess of D'Urberville has departed from the Wessex, all that. And it reveals emotions. The emotions are also very well represented in dialogue writing, and dialogues also help in the advancement, in the promotion, in the rising of the plot also. All of a sudden the scene changes, and the dialogue tells you that, look, now he has shifted from Ireland to England, etc., and exposes the character. Dialogues also highlights, dialogues also sketches the character of the character. We were talking about two different character connotations. So the character, the dramatic personas ethos has also been highlighted through dialogues. And dialogues also help in the resolution of the conflict in the denouement, or in the religion. Then another very important aspect in a novel is its external, its settings, or we may say environment, or we may say atmosphere. It is where the act is being performed, where the novel has been performed, where the characters are So this answers where. So this setting is also of two types: external setting and internal setting. External setting is the place, the time, the history, etc. Like the novels are, in regional novels, the novels are Hardy's novels are set in Wessex, or R.K. Narayan's novels are set in Malgudi, or V.S. Naipaul's novels are set in Trinidad. So that is the that is the chronological, that is the locale of the novel. And then internal setting is time. Internal setting is um, like um, like in Ulysses, the not the Ulysses play or the poem, the Ulysses novel. He takes back and forth. So that is internal setting. The mind, especially in stream of consciousness technique and in psychological novels, novelists have taken this, and they have talked about a dream, they have talked about memories, and they have talked about historic memories and historical time. Means taking back and forth. Salman Rushdie's novel, V.S. Naipaul's novel, The Area of Darkness, they all talk about this internal setting. And in a psychological novel or in 20th century novel, this internal setting has been introduced or can be understood by understanding Henry Bergson's theory of time, inner time or la durée, or psychological time, sitting here, going back to my subconscious or in my past, or going forward in my future, that is inner time. And then second is clock time or mechanical time, the present time, here and now. That is mechanical time, that is chronological time, that is historical time, set in 20th century, set in 18th century, etc. This book, Matter and Memory, written by Bergson, is a very important book if we try to understand the settings, especially to understand the 20th century novels, psychological novels, stream of consciousness technique, or novels based on brain mapping, etc. Point of view, or point of view is angle of consideration. I have divided it into three parts: limited, omniscient, and limited omniscient. You see, limited means the author is talking in first person narrative, and he is talking and talking and talking. He is talking about, in an autobiographical form, about himself. Another technique is that he is omniscient, like E.M. Forster in A Passage to India, and he is monitoring all the characters, all the novelists, all the authors, all the literatures, writers are omniscient in their word. But are they using that technique in this particular novel or not? That is the point. So some of them often use this limited omniscient. For something they are sure that they are observing it, for something they defer, they do not talk about that. So that is limited omniscient view of, or point of view of, novelist in a particular novel. I leave it here and then come back to this message, vision, worldview, and zeitgeist. Actually, point of view, as far as E.M. Forster is concerned or Robert Woodworth is concerned, they have said that point of view is the vision, point of view is the message, point of view is the worldview, or the word is spirit, or the historical spirit the author or the novelist is talking about. I am leaving it here. I'll be talking again about this if the time permits it in last but one slide of mine in prophecy. So pattern, rhythm, pattern in a novel is a shape You see, every author, every writer follows some pattern. Sometimes some novelists use many techniques in the same novel, sometimes they stick to one or two patterns. You see, sound has its pattern, color has its pattern. They often use black and white, white to show the peace, the purity, the serenity, and black to show the negative characters, etc. So, most of the cases, the novelists use some pattern or the other, and they use different patterns. Even the pattern has a different pattern. If time would permit, sometimes in other lectures we'll talk about this in detail. But if we take the example of the Mayor of Casterbridge, or if we take the example of the Adventures of Augie March, these characters work as the hourglass, especially the Donald Farfrae. You see, this is the hourglass. Donald Farfrae, he started as a ordinary man, and then he becomes the mayor of Casterbridge, and then he again comes back to his original. So such kind of characters have a different pattern. But sometimes you see, other characters have only ascending and ascending order, so that has also a different pattern. Sometimes motifs are also used. Some novelists use some motif. Nowadays, since we are in a lockdown period, especially I am watching so many these Netflixes and series, etc. Recently I had seen a Netflix Patal Lok, in which a media tycoon's story has been dealt, and the author has very beautifully used dog as a motif. In some movies, in some films, they use leaf as a motive. Sometimes they use color as a motive. So that also has a pattern. And if we understand the pattern of the novelist, we understand the novel in a whole, in a Gestaltian theory. That Gestalt says we do not perceive things in isolation, we perceive things in its totality. So then we will be in position to understand the novel in totality if we understand the pattern of the novel. And coming back to this memory and intelligence, you see, to understand any pattern, to understand any story, to understand any plot, the first thing which is important is memory. We have to retain what has been told by the novelist in the beginning, because sometimes he is using different devices. So memory is also very important, that we retain the storyline from the beginning. And intelligence is also very important, that we relate this particular event, this particular pattern, this particular symbol, this particular motif with the motive the author has used in the beginning. So they also play a very important role. The very traditional, very classical pattern of novel or story or drama is that good ends as good and bad ends as bad. But modern novelists have broken that. They hardly talk of that. They differ the stories. They leave it to the intelligence of the readers. Along with the pattern, rhythm is also used in novels. As I talked, pattern is the visual part of novel, and rhythm is the auditory part of the novel. That when a particular kind of event is going to happen, a particular kind of sound is produced. The birds start chirping, or somebody starts singing, or the flute is being played by somebody. So all these things are also used. that increases, that enhances the tempo of the novel, that enhances content, that enhances the quality of the novel and the quality of the novel writing as well, if we resume to novel writing. So pattern and rhythm also play very, very, very important role in novel writing and understanding novel. um, it is for the students revision. Often novel starts in first person narrative, second person narrative, or third person narrative. You see, when the novel is started in first person narrative, it is normally in autobiographical tone, it is normally subjective novels. And when it is in second person narrative, it is epical novel, it is allegorical novel. And when the third person narrative is used, it is like dramatic style. The author is omniscient. I had talked about the point of view, so the author or the novelist is omniscient. And Anthony Burgess has also talked about all these things, that they include complexity to a great deal to the novel. Again, this is a revision one. The narrative of considerable length, certain complexity, imaginative, historical, mythological. I'll be coming to different types of novels as well. So I am a little hurrying this particular. Otherwise, I could have stayed and talked about this at length. Human experience, connected sequence of events, a group of persons or characters or persona, and a specific setting. This is a revision of what we have earlier discussed in this particular lecture itself. Now, if ma'am you allow me, I'd like to talk about the types of novel. Time is there? Hello?
Yes, sure.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, sure. We have till 3:30.
Okay.
So we have another 20-25.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So this I'll type. In the first part or till now, I had talked about the aspects of novel, that what makes a novel a novel. First I talked why it is called novel, then what makes a novel. Now we'll be talking about, or we'll be discussing different types of novel. You see, autobiographical novels are very popular, and it is believed in literary circle, it is believed in critical theories, that each and every reading and writing person can at least write one good novel if one focuses upon one's own life. So autobiographical novels are novels which are based on the one person's own autobiography, but it is not autobiography, it is novel. So what is the difference? Difference is that in autobiography we are supposed to be truthful. And one more thing also, whether it is biography or whether it is autobiography is very important. There are three things which are important in biography and autobiography. The first thing is truthfulness, or the role one is playing in making history. Like I cannot write a novel on myself and say that this is my autobiography. I do not play a very important role. I may be important to my students, I may be important to my friends, I may be important to my family, but in the shaping of history, I would not have played very important role. So when it comes to autobiography, when it comes to biography, it is understood that the person whose biography is written or whose autobiography the person is writing has played some very crucial, some very important role in the shaping of the history. But anybody and everybody can write an autobiographical novel. So I have cited two very important autobiographical novels. First is Charles Dickens' David Copperfield, and the second is Saul Ballow's Herzog. Herzog is also prescribed in Lucknow University, and this is one of the my favorite novel, especially from the feminist point of view. This novel is also very important. A traditional wife and a modern wife, the conflict between. And this particular novel can be a study in many different forms. It is an epistolary novel, it is an autobiographical novel, it is a novel in which existential conflict is there. It is a novel in which the segregation of minorities, or the segregation of Jewish people have also been shown. So same is the case with David Copperfield also. David Copperfield in Dickensian period, and I was fortunate enough, I would like to relate at this point of time, since time is permitting me, that I have been to Rochester when I went to London, and there I found the roads and alleys which Dickens has described in David Copperfield, and even in his house where we visited, which has been turned now into a museum. I brought the map also, and in my department I had framed that map, I had fixed that map. Some of my students, when they come, and I used to tell them about the LAs and all that, which Charles Dickens has described in David Copperfield. So you see, these different sorts of novels which are autobiographical has a different message to give. There are a huge chunk of autobiographical novels. Then picaresque novel. Picaresque novel, the term has been taken from a Spanish word picaro, which means a rogue, a scoundrel. You see, in contemporary time, it is said that nobody is an ideal to one's own wallet, one's own personal servant, because your personal servant know you perfectly well, who you are. And the same is the case with psychological novels, that I'll talk about psychological novels little later. I have to stick to the picaresque novel. So a picaro is a character who is a rogue, and whose development from a roguish character to a well-established gentleman is shown in these novels. Since it talks about a scoundrel, it talks about an ordinary low persons who is not heroic in characteristics. The novel is realistic. Often it is in satirical form. Humor is used in abundance, and it is often in episodic form, the childhood, the adulthood, and maturity. So it is in the formative years are also focused in these novels. And Cervantes' Don Quixote, Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, Henry Fielding's Tom Jones, which is prescribed in Lucknow University, and Saul Ballow's The Adventures of Augie March come into this category. Epistolary novels. This came from it blossomed in 17th century, and the term has been taken from French epistles. Again, I'll go back and talk about Herzog. Saul Bellow has used this epistolary form in Herzog also, where Herzog used to write letters to people living and dead. He used to write, it is an American novel, so he used to write letters to Nehru, he used to write letters to Gandhi, he used to write letters to Schopenhauer, he used to write letters to Einstein. So this form is also used in 20th century, in which not only the letters but the radio recordings are also used, and Pamela is also written in this form. Then Gothic novels. Gothic novels blossomed or came to the fore in 18th and 19th century. Horace Walpole is one of the leading writer or novelist of this particular style. And it is not only the architecture, it is not only the background or the setting of this Gothic novel which makes it very important. It is also the treatment of it. It is also how the mystery, how the magic. And you see, Gothic novel is nowadays developed in the form of mystical realism, which has been used by Salman Rushdie. So Gothic novel is a kind of novel which talks about the castles, the old ruins, and all that. And then romantic novels. They both, Gothic novels and romantic novels, they both blossomed simultaneously. And in the 19th century, romantic novels again is divided into four types: historical romances, paranormal novels, detective novels, and science fiction. H.G. Wells has written this historical novels in detail. Especially when we talk of historical novel, you see, this term in itself is little contradictory, whether it is history or whether it is a fiction. Because if it is a history, it's not fiction, and if it is a fiction, it is not history. So historical novels are bad in both ways. It is a bad history and it is a bad novel. But no, the author walks in a knife edge, and he uses the characters of history in such a way, in such a manner, that the history is also not violated, but the fiction adds flavor to the effect of readers' taste. So it is a very serious kind of writing. It is a very delicate kind of writing, historical novels. And since it blossomed in a romantic period, you see, a lot of Hellenism is seen there, a lot of love for nature, or a lot of love for Greek literature is also seen there. A lot of suspense, melancholic tone is also seen there. Then paranormal novels which talks about characters like haunted houses, etc. And detective novels, Sherlock Holmes are the popular detective novels. And then science fiction. Science Wallace has dealt in detail about this Horace Walpole's novel, which talks about history, myth, and all that. And you see, when I'm saying Gothic and romantic novels, Gothic is the setting, Gothic is the supernatural elements, it is the suspense, it is the mysticism which has been used. And sometimes the novelist intermingles these elements, and it's a very borderline difference in all these sorts of novels. Realistic novels came especially in 20th century, in which a lot of realism has been used. Love, sex has been dealt in a different form. D.H. Lawrence, Sons and Lovers, Lady Chatterley's House, all these are realistic novels in which people or the novelist ask questions like how I'm supposed to deal with my sexuality. All these questions are answered in these novels. Regional novels are
Thank you, Dr. Vajpayee. We have just about 2 minutes left.
okay.
And
So
I would request you to sum it up.
Okay. So, regional novels we had talked in when we were talking about Hardy, or when we were talking about. Rather, I should have concentrated more on 20th century novels, especially this Bildungsroman novel. And I would like to focus on the last term only, the self actualization, because the current period after this realistic novels came, when Maslow's theory came, or when Carl Jung's theory came, and Freud also talked about that stream of consciousness technique or psychological novels. I will leave.
Maybe we will have our discussion in our next webinar. But
Okay.
thank you so much. It was a thoroughly well researched
Thank you so
webinar,
much.
and you gave us so many repetitive views. Now our students must be very clear on it, and faculty whose expertise is not on novel too must have grasped a lot of things. So thank you so much, Dr. Bajpayee. We